What's up, everybody? Peter X. Sissel Coffee here, and welcome to another episode of Classic Songs. And today we're doing Just the Way You Are. Two really good versions of this song. Uh, Billy Joel originally did this on the Stranger album, and then Isaac Hayes did a great cover and did Isaac Hayes things to it, and so I love both versions, so we'll cover both. Um, Billy Joel's clocks in at 4 minutes and 50 seconds, and it's sitting right now at 266 million streams on Spotify. Um, as I said, it's on the Stranger album released in 1977. The Stranger, one of the few albums, I think there's only a little over 100 albums, from the album era to go diamond, which means 10 million, and this is one of them. Classic album. I owned it back in the day. Um, this Just the Way You Are won 2 Grammys in 1979, so obviously was released late 1977. Won Record of the Year and Song of the Year. So the lyrics, I mean, unconditional love is one of the reasons I love this song so much. Billy Joel's version is, one of my all-time favorites. Is that's not a power ballad. It's kind of a pop ballad. It's not a power ballad. It's not an R&B ballad. But just because of those lyrics, it's just a classic song. So a little bit of history. Billy Joel and the band didn't like this song initially, and it almost did not make it on the Stranger album, but they didn't have enough other material, so they had to put it on. So it's one of those weird, handful of songs that end up being classics that initially the artist isn't thrilled about. Man, I'm glad they put it on the album. I mean, I'm like, what are you thinking? What do you mean you don't like this song? It was written for his wife at the time. Let's see. So they got divorced in the early, in 82. And so he rarely played the song after 86. I mean, and I've recently ran across an interview with Billy Joel, and he said this is the last time he wrote a song about a girlfriend/wife. It was that painful. So he didn't play it, from 86 on, and rarely played it until the 2000s. So yeah, wow, interesting. Glad he released it. Glad he's playing it today. But hey, as a songwriter, I get it. But hey, I have my muses, and I write my songs about my muses. And yeah, some of it's gone sideways, but it's all good. I'm still, still writing. So what makes this song so Billy Joel's version? Well, that mellow electric piano is the first thing. One of the few pop songs to really bring in sax. I mean, I think of Baker Street by Jerry Rafferty, and had that, with that great sax solo, and he brings in the sax after the choruses, and then towards the end of the song, there's a sax solo. Love the saxophone. I don't know why folks don't use it more. I mean, I don't use it a whole lot, but part of that is because I don't play saxophone, and it's hard to, find a good saxophone sample. But hey, I do. I do have, an instrumental with saxophone on my Eve's Call album, and I have another song sitting in the hopper. It's an instrumental with saxophone as well. What I realized as a songwriter is if you want to use a saxophone, you got to plan for it, and you have to structure the song, for a saxophone. So, Yeah, I'm gonna use more saxophone, but love the saxophone as an instrument. So it's the electric piano, how they use the acoustic guitars. It's in the background acoustic guitar for the most part, but there's about two or three spots in the song where the acoustic guitar is brought up, and it really, it just kind of sprinkles in a little bit of magic. The other thing that really gets a song and grabs you is the uses a keyboard called a mellotron, which they started producing a mellotron in 1963. I thought the mellotron was a synthesizer. Just saw that David Bowie used the mellotron in Space Oddity. I knew the Beatles used it, particularly in Strawberry Fields. And it's what we call a pad, but it's a voices sound. And what the mellotron was it was one of the first samplers. Now, so it sampled a voice sound or an instrument. Didn't do it very well, not real high resolution that you can get today, or even but it was, you pressed the key and it would play whatever recorded, and it would be a real, I mean, probably, maybe a second, so you could sample. Uh hey, a lot of people have used it. They didn't use it like, when samplers first, I mean, the Sonic Mirage, and I had the Roland S10. Mirage hit in about 84, 85, 86, and the S10, I think, hits, which is Roland, that hits in the early 90s. They use samples differently. I mean, hip hop. That's how sampled. I mean, they use samplers to sample other people's song. The mellotron was trying to sample other instruments, and so anyway, that in the song. And synthesizers, they call it voices because it's the synthesizer, trying to mimic, vocal singing, and the synthesizers do it differently, and you get the right synthesizer patches. It really, you know can pack in a real emotional punch. Now, here's what I found. I didn't know this. I've had synthesizers off and on for 30 years. So here's the definition of a pad. In classical music, horn strings, woodwinds would play long, sustained parts behind the melody, padding the arrangement to give it greater harmonic depth. Had no idea. That's where the term pad came from. But that, interesting for I throw that in there for other, songwriters that might be watching, and folks who use a synthesizer, because I never knew, and I was just I was doing the research, and sometimes the words underlined. I'm like, hey, I don't know why they call it a pad. Why? I remember my brother asked me one time. I was playing a song for him. He's like, well, what's that sound called? I said, that's a pad. And he just kind of like, huh? Why do they call it a pad? I'm like, I don't know. Now I know. All right, so 10 cc's. I'm Not in Love also used a mellotron. Now, what really, you know, uh, inspired me to figure out, what Billy Joel used in this song was that, it reminds me of the Roland D50, which I really fell in love with, when it dropped in the mid 80s, and I didn't have $2,000 in the 80s to buy a D50. Now, thank goodness, I have the Roland Cloudness in there, not for free, but, a virtual simulated version, which is still very good. So, finally got my D50. Took me, what, 30 years? But hey. But yeah, that's why I really love that sound, and but the Mellotron was doing this in 63. So quickly, a couple other people covered this song. Um, Diana Krall did it, on the piano. It's a little more acoustic with her piano version of it. Frank Sinatra did it in 1980, and let's just say it's very Sinatra-esque. I mean, think of, what would Frank Sinatra do to Just the Way You Are? I mean, I can't speak for younger folks. We've heard enough Sinatra, and he Sinatra's it. I mean, it is what you think it is. If you're familiar with Sinatra. And then Harry Connick also has a version in this big band. It's sort of a big band string and piano thing, from 2009, and not Sinatra-esque, but certainly to the degree that Sinatra would do it. But let's get into Isaac Hayes' version. Isaac did a lot of, he did some, he was, when you look at his 25 best songs, maybe 5, 6, 7 of them are covers. He didn't cover a lot, but when Isaac covered songs, he covered songs, and he did a good job. And what Isaac does, he does a little different thing, a 70s soul thing, during the chorus. He doesn't use the string, the mellotron and the voices pad. But what Isaac does is the spoken word beforehand. I mean, Isaac was a master at the spoken word and his monologues, and some people, think of Shaft. I mean, he's that spoken word the whole thing. And so, when they talk about the roots of hip hop, Isaac Hayes comes up because of his spoken word skills. By the Time I Get to Phoenix, check that one out. George Clinton sometimes would do spoken word. The Last Poets, Gil Scott-Heron, would do spoken word. And so this is in some ways the precursor to rapping in hip hop. But what he does in this spoken word is he doubles down on the lyrics and just, and puts his own twist and is, telling his lover at the beginning of the song, but she feels insecure about her looks and other things, that most women from time to time feel, and he basically is like, yeah, don't worry about that. You my girl, I love you. Bam, bam, bam. But does it in like only Isaac can. And Isaac's one of the great balladeers and one of the great romancers in music history, and he nails it. So I gotta give Isaac some love because I love what he does with the song. So yeah, a quick one, but hey, ballads are not, you don't get as many good ballads these days as you did back in the day. Part of that's because it takes a while to flesh out a good ballad. I mean, most songs are 3 minutes and 15 seconds at the most. Many of them are under 3 minutes, and it's hard to find ballads under 3 minutes. There's some out there, but just like romance, you can't rush it, and sometimes it takes a little longer. If you go into Spotify and get a great ballads, a soul ballad or just whatever ballad playlist, those songs are usually run long because it takes a while to build that romance. So yeah, so let me hit this close. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. I got 5 albums on all the streaming services, and it's attached to this channel here. I record under the name Exodus, Xodus. My first album is called Book 1. I also have 2 science fiction fantasy novels on Amazon, and also a novella on Amazon. Leave some comments, and appreciate your support. Thanks for coming through, and I will see you next episode.